Hey, it's Kizzy. Glow with the Flow podcast here. I'm from Hip Hop Heels. I've got these young gentlemen with me today in the studio. Do you want to introduce yourselves, lads?
Yeah, I'm Ben from Let's Feed Brum.
And I'm Robin from Friendly Fire Music in Brum.
And Robin's kindly let us use his studio today for our recording. So hence we've got a load of fancy equipment behind us. So our special guest is somebody who was with us on season 1, but he's so good, we've invited him back to season 2.
Thank you.
Our guest, please could you tell the world who you are and what you do, please? Who are you? What do you do? Where do you come from?
Who are you?
Hi, my name's Whitey. I'm a UK reggae dancehall artist, and I'm from Ipswich.
Yeah. So when you came to join us last time, we talked about your journey into dancehall, and one of the things I'm really interested in is that you've done so much in your career. So the young people who are, interested in MCing, rapping, might have started in one kind of genre, right? Maybe drill or grime. But what I wanted to do with our podcast today was just to explore how you might make your lyrics more versatile. So expanding your repertoire, exploring your flow, switching up your backing music, and making success in different genres. And you're just like Cheshire Cat, who's just been with us today in the studio. You're one of the other people that I can think of as really diverse artist that's been around the world and has got a lot to offer for young people and people who might want to start writing. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey from the dancehall and reggae lyricism into other genres like jungle and drum and bass?
Yeah, well, at the time when sort of jungle came around in the early 90s, I was on a sound system and I was chatting like every week more or less on a shanty sound system doing the reggae dancehall vibes in it. And then more and more the jungle scene, a lot of people I knew were moving over to, well, it wasn't jungle at that point, it was like rave and everything, the rave scene. And then some of the people I knew from like the sound system scene locally started to MC at these things and all of that.
How did that happen? Like, what did they just get called in by the promoters, or were they actively looking? What happened?
They were at the rave, just exploring, discovering, innit? And then boom, they saw a mic and just went to the mic.
No way.
That's what mic men are like, innit?
Yeah, natural.
Try and keep them off it.
Yeah, I know. Bloody being a promoter, you have to try and like push 20 man off there. It's not your gig. I've got somebody else playing.
Yeah. So that's I think that's how they got into it. And at first I was a bit skeptical, really. You know what I mean? That wasn't really knocking me out. I didn't mind some of the music, but I wasn't like that attracted to it for quite a long time, till about, I would say, even like 94, around them times, when it really got like full on jungle kind of thing. And then I started chatting at a few of the things, like a few of the jungle raves locally and whatever. And then I got a residency. We was resident MCs at a club called Oscars in Clacton, which is like on the seaside of Essex. It's about 40 miles from here or something. So we was doing that as well for about a year. So I kind of got into it through that.
What was
my friend?
Yeah,
so like my friend MC Junior. My friend was called MC Junior. He went on to like excel in that whole scene, like the hardcore scene. He was a bit of a legend in that scene. Yeah, he passed away in 2011, but he's massive in like the hardcore scene and everything like that.
So would you say that you sort of go along with him and get into it more with him, or?
It got a bit hardcore for me. All of that side of things that he was into wasn't really my thing. So he kind of went that way, and I stayed with the reggae thing, like more grounded in the reggae thing. So my thing was more like a flirtation with the jungle. I didn't go like full over to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then fast forward to the last sort of 5-6 years, when people in Bristol have been booking you more, like for the drum and bass raves. Can you tell us about how you transported into that scene in modern times?
Yes. So then I always kind of like, one of my best friends is Digital, the drum and bass producer.
Oh,
right?
no way! Yeah, no, he's such a nice guy.
Yeah. So I've done like vocals for some of his tunes. I've done like, now and then I've hosted sets for him and stuff. So I've always kind of kept the link, like a little bit distant, but kept the link sort of thing. And then England Story 2006, there was a jungle mix of that. And everything that we did early on in Sativa Records, about 2003 onwards, there was always like a jungle mix. We did some, like quite a lot of jungle stuff because of Digital's influence, really. And so then through that now, certain other jungle acts like from Bristol and whatever knew about me and wanted to link with me. And then what really happened, Runting's crew, I think they were called Runting. No, I'm lying. It wasn't Runting's crew who called me down. It was a different crew who called me down to a jungle thing at Lakota. And let me give you a quick story about that, right? So I arrived at Lakota, yeah, and the guy is not answering the phone. I'm outside Lakota, and he's like, can't get him on his phone, And someone else answers the phone and says, yeah, he's coming out to me. This guy comes out to me, gurning his face off, like doesn't know. He's like, oh man, this is killing my buzz, man. This is killing my buzz. This is to get me to my hotel. Like I've been booked by these guys have booked me.
Travel 4
hours.
The
promoters. Yeah, exactly. 3.5 hours, and they're off their trolley, like they're getting involved in it. You know what I mean? So basically, as a result of that, Runting's crew came in and kind of rescued the vibe, and they had a dub plate session organized for me the next day. And that's how I met Runting's crew. And I met Runting's crew that day. I met I think it's LST Sound, yeah, which is a guy called Jason, who's one of the founders of Boomtown Festival, like one of the original free party crew from Bristol ends and that. So that was like the day that kind of changed. It made me like, so all of the recent stuff that you've heard started from that link up there. You know what I mean? And I did Born in a Babylon for them as a dub plate because they were on like the rebel vibes and stuff. And then we revoiced Born in a Babylon as a jungle release on Runting's Records like a few years later from that. And the rest is history, as they say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had a dream about Lakota last night. I dreamt that I would.
Wow.
I had a dream that I was with Aries, like one of my best mates, and then we were in Lakota, but we were back to when we were like, must have been late teens, early 20s or something like that. And in the dream, we were just at the rave doing what we normally do. And it's funny that you should mention that today, because I woke up and I felt like I'd been out to a rave.
Yeah, look at it.
Oh, yeah, that was good. So, I didn't have to pay. I didn't have to travel to Bristol. I didn't have a hangover. So it was a pretty good dream, to be honest.
Yeah, no, they're the best raves, them ones, isn't it? Lowest impact.
Yeah, so it's funny how you said that a lot of it was coincidence that you were there at a time for one promoter and then something else happened. But I think the takeaway from that is you don't know what's going to come if you do something, whatever it is that's your passion or desire. We've talked about this at length.
Right.
You don't need to look at what you're heading towards, where you're going, who's going to see what, why you're doing something. If it's your passion, do it, let it bubble, 100%. Let it stew. Keep engaging in it, and even if it seems like it's a futile activity, maybe no payoff that you can immediately see, the universe doesn't work like that, does it? Because there's something that's around the corner. But it's almost like a test that you have to have the faith to dive off the cliff and do the thing in the first place, and then it's like the universe responds back and then catches something that you would never have seen. That's what happens.
That's 100% right. That's 100% right. And like, I've done shows where there was hardly anybody there, and then it turned out that one of the 15 people in the crowd or whatever it was like 2 or 3 years later they're promoting a festival and they remembered. Because the other thing is, I try my best, even if it's really empty, to still like put a level of performance out. Do you know what I mean? So even just for my own, I don't know, for me, to make me feel good, I guess, right? So even though we went to like a flop thing, he saw what could, he felt the vibes and came back 2 or 3 years later and booked me for a festival, innit? And I'd have never thought that from that night. I had that night down as a complete flop, innit? So it's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know which one is going to be the one, innit?
Yeah. So,
just do it.
Robin promotes obviously Jam Jar, and I've seen you down.
Yeah, and the big Rootside reunion, actually, since you mentioned, on the 30th of July.
Very neatly, very smooth, very smooth.
Nice. No, tell us.
Calling it out, actually.
Tell us all about
What date is that, Robin? What date is that? Where is it happening?
July, it's happening in Leicester at the Too Funky Lounge. Yeah, basically it's a little reunion because there's no proper Shambhala this year again, like last year, so we're kind of missing it. And so we're all getting together with some of our favorite artists like Whitey. Yeah, and also Aries that you mentioned. I mean, there's a big lineup. There's also L16, Nick Manasseh, Solo Banton, obviously Chandra San with Mikey Tuff, Goose Sensley with Natalie D. There's loads of people. You can check it out on online.
Yeah, I hope the podcast gets released before the 30th of July. But if not, this is a retrospective.
I'm just going to take this little bit out and just do a Instagram post myself. Shameless
hustle, but I rate it.
Do you know what? There's been no gig, so why not? We want people at the gig.
Nah, too right.
I'm
just praying that it goes ahead.
Yeah, for real.
And me more than you, man.
Right. 100%. But I need it as well, bro. You know what I mean?
It's going to be good, man. It's going to be good.
So what is the setup there? Is it going to be one like arena kind of thing?
Well, what it is normally, because normally we've got 3 days, but we've only got one night here, so we're doing 3 rooms to make up for it.
Is it in a venue, like a club?
It's in a venue, yeah. So it's the Music Cafe in Leicester, and part of that complex kind of thing. It's a bigger complex.
No way.
And there's no noise restrictions, which is the main, which is,
That's mad. Yeah, that's very rare nowadays.
Yeah. And also Shambhala, it's always been a problem that because it's, it's in the middle of the festival, that there's a bit of interaction between the sounds of different places, etc. And so we always have to keep it a bit reasonable. Whereas there's no reason at all. And,
you can pump out the sound, innit? Woo!
21-inch scoops. That's what we're talking about.
Really? What's the crap? Is it going to be sit down thing? And
no. It's I don't know, man. It's going to be a full-on rave. I'm just thinking if something happens and they do extend these conditions, is it worth doing as a sit-down thing? I don't know. We'll advise when the time comes. You know what I mean? But so far, it should be all sorted.
That's not the plan.
Yeah, the plan is a proper rave, the first one of the year.
Where's my invite?
That's just told you.
Yeah. No, seriously, I wouldn't mind going to that. But I've had a funny case.
There's a coach going from Birmingham.
Oh well, there you go.
Get a couple of cans, sit in there, listen to a bit of music before you know it, you're there. And then you just sleep on the way back until.
Or I could just go to sleep and dream I was there. It's cheaper and easier.
But we'll go back to your tent though, you know what I mean? In Moseley.
Yeah. Do you know, was it Shambhala or Boomtown? Me and Robin were camping next to each other, and I was saying about going for a shower, and he made some crack about how he's got his own shower, and I was like, get out of here. He's actually got a portable shower for festivals.
It's true. It's true.
All right, that can only be respected, man.
That's it, man. It's a good thing, man. And also, I wouldn't have any friends camping with me if I didn't.
Yeah, that's why I was there, innit?
Exactly.
Yeah. But coming back to what I was going to say, I was about to say how I have a bad taste in my mouth about sitting down and going out to see performances, and it literally is just because I don't mind people doing their thing, whatever, it's all good, but for me, I just like dancing. Part of me for me is the bopping around. I find it hard to stay still, and I'll go out anywhere, right? Any genre, any event, like if it's your cousin's wedding or whatever music it is, I'm a natural dancer. I feel the rhythm in my body, so I find it really awkward and out of I find it really restrictive to be sitting down.
I find it strange when I see like those raves really, when it's like jungle and people like sitting down like this, like holding onto their chairs and kind of like getting told off by security every time. But having, you know, some of the shows we did with the acoustic thing I really enjoyed, and I really want to keep doing that after.
100%. It's good for you as an artist, it's good for you as a promoter, it's good for crowds who want to listen to the music and mingle. That's brilliant.
But not dance music. Dance music.
No, and it's not good for me. I've only done one and I didn't enjoy it at all.
You didn't enjoy it. So tell us about what it was for you as a performer.
It's too detached from the crowd for a start. Like, the crowd was a long way away at this one, and I just couldn't get no vibe off the crowd.
And was it a DJ based thing, or was it like a band?
Yeah, it was a DJ based thing. Yeah, it's a big one, outdoor one.
Yeah,
but it just didn't, for me, it didn't, you know, felt unfulfilled at the end of it.
If you've got a massive arena of people sitting down, then it just looks like a dead. But for the ones that we did were like really small and quite, you know, not close obviously because it's social distancing, but you know, I mean, it's like the dark horse room was quite small, and we're all kind of sitting with guitars, and I kind of liked it. It was kind of intimate, and you listen to the words a bit more, and there's a real
like a different performance.
But it's not, we weren't on a big stage high up and then looking down over a festival, you know what I mean? Like we're gonna do a car park one in last year. And they did a few in it, but they never really worked out, and they ended up cancelling all the events they had, you know? Yeah,
because the Dark Horse pub where we're talking about in our local area, it's got an intimate and dark vibe, so it really lends itself well. But like, I think with this whole pandemic situation that we're in, having the connection with human beings is quite important. So, you know, the idea of an MC performing to a crowd that's sort of disconnected kind of counteracts that whole feeling of, you know, why you go out. But also, I've chatted to my friends, you know, when you go to the dance, you're in a bar queue and you're just sort of bopping along, you might catch the eye of somebody next to you, chat to them, or in the toilet, you might chat to somebody. You know, when you accidentally knock somebody on the dance floor, you might have a friendly, like, oh, I'm sorry, and get to know people. That most of my friends I've met through going out, through music. So I find it a bit odd. How do young people now, how do they make friends and catch, you know, new relationships and stuff with people?
Yeah, and old people all the time, you know. I mean, this is one thing that I've always thought is when you're young and you're going out all the time, and you know, it's easy to make friends. But once you get to a certain age and you kind of haven't got that social group, you can't just go to the uni bar or whatever.
So I've seen this research, right? Over the whole of the COVID pandemic, the University College London, UCL, have done research. They collected data on people's well-being, feelings of well-being, their feelings of worry, and feelings of loneliness. And so mental health stats, you know, when you look at the line graph, it's been higher during the, you know, more infectious period, and now it's sort of leveled off and gone down. Same with mental health, blah, 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 blah. The loneliness line has been steady. So people's levels of loneliness have not changed. People still feel really disconnected. And I think music is a source of comfort, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when you listen to a tune and you start getting your memories flooding back, it's a really visceral experience in your brain. Absolutely. Music stored with all these emotions and, you know, feelings of love, connectedness, you know, people that you knew. And I think it's like my dream last night. Yeah, I've got a satisfying feeling of having gone out from that. Yeah, but really, lots of people are starved, aren't they?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of levels to it, you know, really, for the music thing, and also because what you're talking about is more really social things than more than, you know, what you're talking about happens in a bar anyway, whether there's music or not. You're gonna bump into people and you're gonna interact. And in the same way that when we did these acoustic shows and you had to book by table, people found it hard to find 4 mates to go out with because you haven't been calling them every day and you kind of lost touch a little bit, and you're almost scared to see your own mates because you've been so kind of, you know,
that's true.
You don't really know how to behave in public, and you know what I mean? Like you end up, you know,
that the loneliness is that it's not got worse.
It's not got worse or better. It's just stayed low. Like, I mean, high. The loneliness levels have stayed high consistently throughout the pandemic period, even though things are easing up. And I think what Robin's saying is right.
Yeah, there's a bit of a post-traumatic thing about it that, you know, you kind of forgot how to be social. You got so used to staying out. And
anxiety as well. A lot of people are scared to, like, sort of what's the word, like, to start mixing again and everything. Do you know what I mean?
Anyway, yeah, and you know, from on loads of different levels, from the virus level, but from on this personal level as well. And It's weird. I mean, the first show we did, it was like being back to school, you know what I mean? And you see everyone that you haven't seen in a while, and they've all changed a little bit. There's all, you know what I mean? They've been through the summer holidays or whatever, and they all look a bit different, a bit evolved. And it's like, you know, what have you become? You know, it's kind of a weird kind of situation. I can see why, you know, it can make people anxious, especially if you've got that kind of anxiety anyway.
Yeah.
This kind of thing makes it harder for everyone, man.
Yeah. I think also you don't want to say how anxious you feel and share like social times with people, because you don't maybe want to bring things down, so you might not be responsive when people are trying to phone you up to get you out, because number one, you're scared about getting the virus, number two, not seen people phrases, number three, you kind of like might have changed a bit, so that adjustment's not, you know, it's not an easy thing to do, is it? I don't know how we're going to get out of this. Like, I don't know what the answers are.
Progressively, or just, you know, people just forget about it, innit?
Well,
everything. If like, how do we get out of the Second World War?
If things are allowed to go back to normal, then we will just go out of it. But you know, there's talks now of a permanent lockdown. You know, so it's like
we've talked about that.
It was in the news this morning. I don't know if you read it, but there was something leaked about from one of the government meetings, and they're saying that there's potential to, well, I think it's just a case that there's a plan for a permanent lockdown.
Well, it's easier to control everybody. If they've got a permanent lockdown, all of us are more at their will. So it's easier for them to control and govern.
It is control, but doesn't it really show something, though, about, because I think when the pandemic first came, I mean, I remember first hearing about it in happening like in other parts of the world. And I actually had some friends in Hong Kong who texted me and said, look, we can't get any face masks. Can you get us some and send it over to us? You know, and I was just, because it was like far away, it wasn't in England. And then I remember like looking online and trying to order some face masks, and it was like they'd run out everywhere. And I thought, hey, this is like, what's going on here? And then by that time, I think the first country that did a lockdown was Italy. And then, you know,
after China.
After China. And then I was thinking, it's never going to happen in England. Like, you know, we're British. We're not going to have a lockdown. And it came. And like, and I thought, wow. And I think the original feeling was a little bit about, oh, well, if I'm being paid to stay at home, I can do my garden, I think it was quite a positive feeling to start with, you know, and then everything's kind of gone downhill from there, hasn't it?
Well, but then, you know, here's a beautiful thing that needs to be noted, though, is that the Tory government went socialist for a minute, you know what I mean, which is kind of, you know, an important kind of demonstration that, you know, that socialism is a better way, because when shit hits the fan, there's no, Toryism doesn't work. Tory is good if it's so, like, you know, fair weather kind of politics, everything's going well, there's loads of money coming in, I'm taking my bags, you know what I mean? The people don't really need it because they've got work
conservative
anyway. You know what I mean?
Sort of right wing.
Well,
but there they've proved themselves that the policy is not, you know, is not sustainable in times of hardship. You know what I mean? So I think that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, I think an ism, whichever ism it is, it's like, you know, I'm a little bit cynical about all the political parties, to be honest.
And I wasn't talking about parties at all.
Oh, okay.
I was talking about the Tory party, but I was talking about socialism as an idea.
Oh, okay. I think I would, you know, I prefer to use the word humanitarian. It's like when you're behaving like a human being to another human being. Don't get me wrong, politics, you can't get out of it. You know, politics have been there from like year one. And politics serves the agenda of the leaders. It always has, and it always will. But I think, you know, we're still quite fortunate in a country like ours where we can develop our own networks with each other, local communities, which actually, I mean, yes, the government does have some control over us, but not to the degree that some people in other countries have to face, you know. And, you know, part of, I mean, it's interesting to hear this discussion about, you know, music and people wanting to go out and socialize and be with each other, because actually we can do that. I mean, in France, it's a 9 o'clock curfew, isn't it?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. There you go.
It's like, he's a French man. Robbie's from France.
That's what I was saying.
It's not the same, because basically people finish at 6 and they can't go out for drinks together, and that, so it kind of kills.
So you finish work and then you've got to go straight home, kind of thing.
And it's a very social culture, isn't it? The French culture.
Yeah, that idea of going for a drink.
And you know, so I think that we have degrees of freedom in this country, which are better than in most countries in the world, but it still has had a very bad effect on people's mental health. You know, you asked the question, where's the way out? I think in some way, if you keep suppressing it, that's where one day the reaction is going to be violent. You actually have to let it out, don't you? You have to let these things happen. And you know, the hope is that in the policing of these things, it's like they just don't go too far. You know what? They've got to realize that people need, it's got to be intelligent.
It's just about finding that balance as well. But then maybe it's also because of how we want everything so fast. And we're used to internet, used to having stuff on your phone, information straight away. That, like, you know, it's just been a year of
taking it easy,
not doing much. You know what I mean? Like in other places, people have spent 10 years fighting, dodging bombs, like scraping the floor for crumbs and stuff. You know what I mean? So in the greater scheme, it's like this is a minor kind of thing that we're going through. And so I think if we can remember that, it can help you to also kind of see that it's just a temporary thing. It's not, you know, it's not a war. You haven't had to kill anybody. All you've had to do is kind of like, you know, and obviously
sit in your warm house and be paid. I don't see why some people are taking offense to that, but
it's
well, no, but the point is, if you're lonely, if you've got, you know, any kind of, and you know, and this kind of stuff does like breed kind of mental health, and so it's normal that people feel away, but you have to remember that people have gone through loads worse than that for much more sustained periods of times where they didn't have, you know, the kind of just sitting at home watching TV and things, and you know what I mean?
But the thing with that is, that's first world problems as opposed to third world problems. But you know, that argument, the problem with that argument is that we're subjective human beings. So and this is, I mean, isn't this interesting? But that village in India or in Africa that's short of food, you know, you might have far less mental health issues there than you know, someone in the suburbs of Birmingham, because you know, so it's subjective, isn't it? That person
relative,
that can be sat in a penthouse flat in London is actually emotionally they're all over the place. Whereas the kid who's just got one slice of bread for the day is happy as a lark. You know, so emotions are so subjective. So I get the argument, and I mean, I've used it on my own kids countless times. But actually, the reality is that, you know, our feelings are our feelings, and they're the most important thing to us. And you know, whether we've, you know, been like someone, I meone, you know, somebody's pushed in the queue in front of you in Sainsbury's, you know, you get queue rage, don't you?
So, you might, Benjamin. But...
one might. But I think what it's saying really, and we've touched on this before, it's actually, I think that our general ability in this society, in this culture, to keep our mental health above water is not good. We're not good at this. We're very resilient. We're not.
We're a load of spoiled kids.
Yeah, exactly. But then
basically, we're like a load of spoiled kids, isn't it? Relatively, like what if you're talking in comparison to the whole planet? We are a bunch of spoiled kids, because, like you said, these are first world issues, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
But in the same way, we have something different from other countries or other situations where people might be poor but live within a community. Whereas here, a lot of the problems is not about how easy we have everything, the fact that we haven't got this connection between people. And obviously these situations make it even worse. And that's our problem as a society, I think.
It's come with this culture and lifestyle that we live here, isn't it? That's part of it, like the detached lifestyle.
Makes it worse, like, because people can have their own internet groups rather than having local people actually connect with people in society. They connect with people who might also like, you know, some obscure sport that nobody else knows about or whatever.
It's comes with the rise of individualism in the 20th century, and you know, people like Sigmund Freud were talking about the self and their ego and the id and all that kind of stuff, and thinking about how human beings' perception of their reality and how their mental health works, and so on and so forth. But in many cultures around the world, you're part of a unit, and that unit is your village, the next door neighbor's cat, you know, everybody around you. You're growing food together, eating together, dancing together, mourning together, suffering together. So when my mum says that, you know, when you it might be an Indian adage, but I'm sure it's English as well, about, you know, your problem shared is a problem halved. You have that kind of saying in India, in Punjab. And there's another saying my mom said, where if you listen to somebody else's problems, those tears that you shed when you're feeling connected are your tears of your pain, because your pain might bring something from me. So you're really crying for yourself where you've been in that shoes. So she's talking about empathy there. And going back to Whitey's craft as an MC, this is where MC's power lies, I think, coming through words, creating that empathy connection with the listener, because you're painting pictures, evoking feelings, reliving events that people can relate to, isn't it? So how do we come out of this mental health pandemic? How can the MC or lyricism help to, boost people up? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. I don't expect anyone to answer that, but if you want to have a go.
Well, speaking for myself, I'm trying to keep things light at the moment, and that's not what I'm known for, isn't it? But
you're
right now I'm trying to keep things light. So I think it's about that. I don't think anybody needs to talk about our problems any more than we have for the last 18 months. It's been nothing but that, isn't it? So it'd be good to just enjoy life a bit and everything like that. So I think coming, like, the next step at least is going to be about that. It's just going to be about letting go and enjoying yourself for a bit. And then, a lot of this stuff is not going away as well. So, we're going to have enough to deal with going forward. I'm not worried.
I'm really looking forward to a comedy album, man.
My comedy album,
Just pure jokes in the next one, like this.
Dad jokes, just bare dad jokes.
Put them in.
Forget the conscious lyrics, forget the protest lyrics, the separation.
It's too much, too heavy, man.
I can see my kids rolling their eyes now.
So how do you write positive, upbeat lyrics when the world's in chaos like now?
Well, that's a very good question, kids. One that I'm dealing with every day.
Answers on a postcard, please.
Yeah, exactly. But it is a bit like that. It's like anything, you can't force it. Lyrics, you write what you're feeling, innit? I think it's very hard to, like, for me anyway, I can't detach from whatever vibe I'm in. So sometimes I just can't write because I'm blocked because of my vibe, like my mood or whatever. And then other times I can channel that and then I find myself writing about serious stuff. And then, like what we're saying now, it's quite hard to sort of, get into that state where you can write about light stuff, you know what I mean? And obviously for me especially, like, that's not really my thing so I struggle with it a little bit. When I'll do it, I'll catch a vibe, record it, put it down, listen to it the next day and hate it. You know what I mean? So it's like that for me, isn't it? So it's something I'm working on at the moment.
I wonder how many other people would listen to it and say they hated it though, because it's one of those things as an artist, you always have something that you've created and you're like, oh, cringe, but then somebody else might think it's the best thing since sliced bread, isn't it?
That's everything ever for me.
Yeah. How do you ever put stuff out? Because there'll be people listening to this now, right? Imagine you're a young person or somebody who's, been to a Hip Hop Heals workshop or whatever, and I've suggested listening to a podcast about MCing and writing. How do you, as a professional artist, get to that feeling to one side that your work hasn't hit the spot, or it's not up to scratch, or it's not as good as your other stuff, or it's no good? How do you do it?
Keep going. Just keep going. You just got to be relentless with it and keep going, innit? And then quite often that thing that you hated will be the biggest one or whatever. It's what we said earlier. You don't know which one.
Yeah.
You can't set off and say, right, this is going to be the hit song, this one. I'm going to write a hit song today. Otherwise, we'd all be very rich, innit? Do you know what I mean? It's like you just got to do your best and express. And I think stuff that comes from the heart it resonates with people the most, innit?
You heard it on Glow with the Flow podcast, guys. Do your best and express.
Express yourself.
Express yourself.
That's, you know what I mean? But the more the other thing is persistence and being relentless with it, you know what I mean? So if you put something out and it's not, move on to the next one and the next one and the next one, and don't keep, like, you can't put one thing out and watch that that would send you mad, literally. Do you know what I mean? And I think anybody who's released music over a period of time would agree with me on that. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes as well, the key thing is when you find that big tune, all them other tunes will sell because people hear your big tune and your fan base grows and they all want to find more stuff from you. So things that have sat there, not doing any numbers as it is now or selling as it, you know, like as it was with vinyl or whatever, suddenly that vinyl will start selling. Suddenly you start getting streams on the other stuff because your name has got attention. So you just got to keep going. Literally that would be that's the main advice I'd give anyone.
It's damn good advice, you know, because I think like going back to what you said about the quick culture, you want to see instant things and
instant gratification.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that most of the time. But it works for some people. It does. So, some people make one tune and get really big, you know, just out of
yeah, of course.
If you're lucky, like, you know what I mean. But otherwise, most people is work. I think that's true of anything, you know what I mean. I think you should have
just gonna say that.
Like talent is one thing, but work is really the one that gets you places, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and they said talent is 10% of it, don't they? They reckon 10% of it is talent, but and the other 90% is made up of that persistence and
hard work,
consistence.
I heard a saying where success is 2% creativity and 98% perspiration.
Yeah, right.
That's quite inspiration.
That's quite a hard.
Yeah, I think it's inspiration and perspiration, isn't it? That's
inspiration and perspiration. What the hell?
That's a bit of a hard thing, but it's true that
you do have to just put your knuckle down and work for it, and take the hits and be prepared to live on nothing if that's your chosen profession.
I think one of the things this is about is like I would call it self-belief, because I think that as a young person, you're brought up by whoever, whether it's your parents or not everyone is that fortunate to have parents bring them up, and you don't know who you are to start with. So your parents or the people who bring you up actually give you an identity, but the identity that they give you is the social identity that they put on you. It's not who you are. That coming of age then, when you change from to become a teenager and then a young adult, that is a time when you need to discover who you really are. And if you've got people around you that encourage you to do that, once you discover who you are, now your life has a purpose, and I think that one of the things is like, whatever you enjoy, it's terrible. I hate it when I hear people say, oh, I hate going to work, or I hate my job. And it's like, what shame it is, because you only live once and you're like literally day after day after day.
It's a massive fraction of your time, eh?
Yeah, and I'm putting but I have to put food on the table, etc. And okay, I get that sometimes you have to make a sacrifice, but maybe there's a question there, isn't it? It's like, well, is this who you are? Find out who you are. And I mean, it's great, like if you're an artist, when you're involved in creating, but I believe that artistic expression is available to anyone, whatever job they're doing. I mean, you could be a dustman.
Science is creative, maths is creative,
you could be,
it's not just art.
And doing admin in an office, you can bring creativity into it. But are you getting more out of what you're doing than just the doing of it? Because if it's just, because then now you're on the hamster wheel, aren't you? And now you're hating it every minute of it. Find out who you are and just excel in who you are. And it, unfortunately, as well, in our culture, there's certain kind of tasks and jobs which we kind of lift up, say like celebrity, for example, say, oh, it'd be great to be one of those, and
like a YouTuber or something.
Yeah, exactly. And isn't it a shame? Because actually, why? Because there are other jobs which could also, that could be who you are, but it's kind of down on. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that it's about identity, finding out who you are, and then just believing in who you are.
That's very hard though, because some people don't have the privilege of having a background where people are saying it's okay to be who you are and you are good at what you do. You can be told you're dumb, you're not going to amount to anything, and all that kind of stuff. And so you constantly battling against that shaping and molding as a child, it cripples people through life, doesn't it, and stops them. And that's where emceeing has changed my life. Is I learned to be who I am through MC culture, hip hop, reggae, jungle, and that's the storytelling of MCs helped me to discover myself. And it might not match my story, might not match my background. You know, I'm 42 years old, Indian, brought up in the UK in Birmingham and Kidderminster, you know, White Town in Worcestershire. Yeah, it doesn't like immediately say, oh, reggae or drum and bass, or, you know, gangster rap from Compton. But this is where I'm saying about empathy, in my connection with the MC stories of being left out, being bullied, outsidered, you know, the kind of racism that I was hearing in the stories. I felt like I could hear something that I could relate to. It wasn't to do with what I look like, the fact that I'm, you know, a woman, not a man. You know, my parents came from a farm, rural culture in Punjab, agricultural, you know, education basic, what you might call sanitation basic, but they're eating rich food, beautiful food, natural food, healthy food, exercising, living a long life and being relatively well and happy compared to how people are over here. And I think that's one of the beauties of the storytelling of an MC, isn't it? You know, you can transcend race, age, gender, sexuality, culture. It's just human to human. As soon as I hear your voice, your pain, when you sing a song, Whitey, and I'm listening to it, it might not be my experience, but it resonates with somewhere. Is what my mom was saying. You cry your own tears when you cry for someone else, in it, because it just takes you back, in it.
It might only be one line in it that hits you. Do you know what I mean? That whole, you know, that resonates with you. But yeah, it's real. And I definitely relate to what you just said, 100%. That's me, innit? Do you know what I mean? I don't know how I ended up doing this music. Do you know what I'm saying? But it just called to me, innit? From, you know, through everything. So it just called to me. So. And
you're damn good at it, and I'm glad you did do it.
Thank you. I'm glad I did it too.
What was that one line in the hip hop tune that I liked? I can't remember. I remember there's one line that just really stuck out, man.
You're on about the whoopie-doo line, aren't you?
How did it go again?
Oh, I can't even remember, bro.
Did you do a hip hop tune? Did you?
Yeah, he said whoop-de-woo in the tune, man. It's wicked.
Yeah, that's tune. I'm still gonna do that tune, bro. You know
that's a wicked tune, you know.
The tune about PTSD, but don't ask me to spit it now because I don't remember it good enough.
Yeah, but it's wicked, man. It was wicked because of that whoop-de-woo.
How did it come about?
The whoop-de-woo was something about, like, you know,
the Queen you got a letter. You got a letter from the Queen. You got a thank you from the Queen.
Yeah, so they got lots of war and all this and gone through all this shit, and then he's got a thank you from the Queen.
It's about someone who's come back from Iraq, and his life is just his head scrambled now, and I'm saying you got a thank you from the Queen. Whoopie fucking do, blood. Yeah. Look what she put you through.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Yeah.
That one, man.
Where did the story of the tune come from? Did you know somebody who'd been to Iraq, or?
Not personally, no, I didn't. It's just like from stuff I've heard and observations and that, and it's something I felt strongly about because I did agree with the war in the first place, and I feel really sorry that, you know, young guys get convinced to go over there and have to face this horrific stuff. Do you know what I mean? We're not meant as humans to see that stuff. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I was literally thinking about that this morning as well, because one of my friends has been to Iraq, came back, had you know, a good job and everything, and I was just thinking about their path, right? And I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to, like, you know, share too much, but with that experience, it takes your whole body and your mind and your soul, doesn't it? You can't come back from there and say, I only dipped my toes into that experience.
Unless you're a psychopath.
That's right.
Yeah. And detached.
Unless what?
You're a psychopath.
Unless you're a psychopath.
Yeah, right.
You can completely.
But I think people. Some of the things I've watched, I think there's a potential for someone, like a switch to go off inside you, you know.
Yeah.
And you lose all your former self, Do you know
That's
what I mean?
army
And you've just
training.
adapted this whole nother persona in order to just
A
cope
killer.
with this situation that you're
Yeah.
in. Do you know what I mean?
But
Yeah.
that's
People
true of many
talk about it,
traumas,
yeah,
definitely,
being a
man.
killer, yes.
I watched this.
Like loads of them came back and they were scared of everything. Like this guy said he rode around with a AK-47 in the back of his van for like 2-3 years after coming back, and every pile of leaves used to raise up his heartbeat because he was scared that it was going to be a bomb and all of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's rough, man.
They did a documentary recently about Iraq, actually, and they talked to lots of different people. One of the guys that I remembered from this documentary was he was one of the special forces soldiers, and he talked about what he'd done. And I mean, he killed people, but it was like you could see as he was relating his experiences that there was a part of him that had gone, and he knew it. You know, he was like, that was my job, so I was trained to do that, and I would just, and you know, it was like he didn't see the human being because he saw that was a task that had to be performed in order to do that. But he knew, you could see that he knew in having that trained into him, and him becoming an expert at what he was doing had taken something away from him that he was never getting back, you know. And it was incredibly painful to watch because there must be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who've gone through this. And you know, it was literally like, it's torture, isn't it? Because you've tortured that individual.
Yeah, because empathy's hardwired in babies. When they do research studies on babies, they automatically go up to another baby and try and comfort them or share their. Even if they can't speak, babies do that. So if you're training a human being to kill other people, you're dehumanizing them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to take you have to, because otherwise
because
you couldn't
humans
do
don't
it.
kill other humans.
Well, it's hard. I mean, I mean, rage is one of the emotions that cause it. We know that, don't we? That, you know, I mean, most people that are killed by people that know them, you know, and it's sometimes it's, you know, so we understand that a human being can be driven towards it. So I think it's not unnatural. You have to have an emotion driven to the extreme. When you're a soldier, you're not killing out of rage.
No,
you know,
it's planned.
No, it's a premeditated kind of.
So you need to tell yourself, it's
nice. Well, I don't know, but I think some of them, like, you know, like if you go and then someone that you're with that you know gets killed or something like that, and then that becomes your spur, then, and that becomes like your motivation, like, do you know what I mean? I think so rage can also, do you know what I mean, you can sort of channel rage into that situation as well, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't go there, man. I wouldn't
go there either, bro.
You get like flown back in the coffin in a Union Jack, like, you know, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about it is, the worst part about it is the actual real reason that you're going there. That's the thing that I don't think enough of them look into. You know what I mean?
Well, you're so right. I mean, you go back to the First World War and the millions of young men that were killed for no reason, really. It was political maneuvering, and you know, you've got like young people who, I mean, I'm all for being patriotic, but you know, you got to have your mind switched on. You know, I don't think it's right, and you know what, I feel like with what's happening in our country right now is that actually, in some ways, it's like the powers that be are gearing up for some kind of war. I can see.
Yeah, it does feel very much like that.
I can see
something's
that
coming around the corner.
Yeah, something around the corner, and there'll be the young people. It'll be the young people who will be called up and called out. You know,
it's a divisive rule that we're under. You know,
the control now is so many people which are complying. Compliance is the key. When you have a large amount of the population complying out of fear or ignorance, doesn't matter.
It's easier to control, isn't it? That's why we're headed.
Understanding the problem.
Yeah,
potentially. You know,
and then, you know, like the government says, no, this is it. We have to have. No, sorry, we're declaring war or whatever, and now, you know, you're going to be called up. I mean, right now, if that happened, we would sign up in droves. You know, the government know best. They know what they're doing.
Do you think people still think like that? Young people? I know that definitely England is definitely. I mean, Great Britain.
I'd love to know the ratio. I know, because the thing is with us, Robin, especially, I think we're more tuned into people that don't think like that. So we tend to think that that influence is stronger than it is. Like, if I'd like to see the big picture and know exactly how many people think like us and how many people think the other way. Do you know what I mean?
Corbyn was going to win these elections.
Pardon? Well, exactly. There you go. That's a perfect example, isn't it?
The first thing I saw about Boris was my cousin in China sent me this advert saying, "Have you seen that?" And I was like, "Nah, that's not real." Turned out that was his campaign that made him win. Where he's going to this woman, right, knocking some door. Some woman opens while her black partner is not interested in politics because he's black and he's watching TV or whatever. And Boris says, "Shh, don't tell him anything. Let's deal like amongst ourselves and tell him that it's the choir people, choir boys." And she goes, "Okay." And then he starts like putting this choir on some little radio and starts showing things about, if we do Brexit, if we don't do Brexit, we'll be here again for ages. And anyway, this exposes his case. It's some scene from a film, apparently, from Love Eternally.
Love Actually.
Apparently, it's some kind of reference to a film. But essentially, Boris Johnson coming out some people's house, knocking the door, telling the wife to like lie to her husband who's not interested in watching TV, which is also, that is another thing. But and then basically just like talks to her, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, Boris, you're right." And he walks away, puts his papers away, and walks into the fucking night. And anyway, I'd never seen this, and I didn't think it was true. But turns out that video actually went round, and that was,
one of his.
He actually got elected. And I pulled it up recently to show it to some friends who hadn't seen it either. And the comments I was seeing under from obviously a lot of Tory voters were like, "Oh, that's so clever. That's such a clever way to advertise, marketing genius and all this." When I saw it, I was like, "Mate, if you do that to my wife, man, I'll find out." Like,
right. Exactly.
Distance, man. You know what I mean?
Exactly that. And I think over some of the stuff that's happened, like some of the Black Lives Matter stuff that happened and all of that over the last, say, 12 months and everything, we all found out that people that we thought one way, they actually don't, and they're very easily swayed in another direction. And do you know what I mean? So not just Black Lives Matter, the whole COVID issue, everything. I think it's been quite a revealing time, I think, for some of our affiliations. You know what I mean?
Look at the whole issue with masks, right? And there's a lot of umming and ahhing about it. Now, since in the last few months, we've had probably 2/3 of the population vaccinated, right? We've had we've had variants, and there have been more cases, but far fewer deaths. Now, I would say in the last 2 weeks, I have seen way more people wearing masks than prior to that.
Yeah. I noticed that actually.
Last weekend it's opening up and people are mixing more, and so they think, well, if I'm going to mix, I might as well wear a mask.
But what it shows actually is like, even though we're kind of on that curve, moving away from the severity of its initial.
I mean, the last 2 weeks is when it started. If you look at the curves, the last 2 weeks, it like literally it was right at the bottom, and it kind of goes back up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that what that shows is compliance.
Well, not really. When I saw that curve and I saw the cases are rising, I'm like, well, I can't just fucking go to really public places because there's a lot more of the virus around. So in the last 2 weeks, I've kind of thought, oh, wait a second, it's not over. You got to be a bit reasonable about it. I don't think it's a compliance.
But do you mean that before, when there was the high infection rate, that people weren't wearing masks as much?
I think weren't going out as much.
Yeah. So you see, so like what you're saying, it's like you're literally following the data that's presented to you, right? So what I'm saying is that we've got a lot more. Yeah. We've got a lot more trust now, I think, in the government than we did at the beginning. It's like
But this is where I totally disagree with you because...
Okay, cool.
Because,
I totally disagree. Sorry.
One at a time, Dad. One at a time.
I think this is a really important thing It's an important thing to talk about because speaking to a lot of English people, especially people that, that have always lived in England, that are in England and that don't really go out, I mean, even more than... Obviously, no one's gone out in a while, but there's really this strong thing about, it's Boris trying to punish us, you know what I mean? But it's nothing to do with Boris. This virus happened outside of Boris. It happened all around the world. Lots of countries have had to take measures. Boris was one of the people that's like, fuck it, man, just let the people die. It doesn't matter. They're not paying taxes, all these old people, you know what I mean? So Boris wasn't one that was in favor of lockdown, and I actually, well, personally, I started being a bit careful about going out when I saw what was happening in Italy and France, and you know, a lot of medical friends kind of thing that are involved in both in France and in England. You know, I saw it coming, and I started thinking, wait a second, I don't want to go out in all of this much, you know what I mean? And then Boris, it took him another few weeks, by which time the things had gone, you know, maybe had he taken measures earlier and imposed them early on people, that would have worked that way. The point I'm trying to make basically is this is way bigger than Boris and English people. You know what I mean? This is a world thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's Boris isn't really relevant.
Worldwide, the trust in governments has been accelerated because people are trying to sort of like...
No, because we don't trust the government.
Pandemic, and I think that it's important to I mean, if you look at certain statistics around, for example, the death rates, right? The average age of a person who's died from coronavirus in this country, the average age is 82, which means that most of the people who've died have over 82.
And you believe that statistic, though? You didn't believe the other one, but you believe that one?
Which other one?
The one about the data that I've been given about things growing.
No, but you're talking about...
given data
no,
I'll
be very specific. The data that's being given now is infection rates, not deaths.
No, but where did you get this data from? That's what I'm wondering about.
You're telling it on the .gov.uk website, right?
But so wait a second. You just told me that you didn't make this rise of infection. That's true.
No, I'm talking about the first thing I said was the number of people that died.
Right. So
not everyone infection dies.
Yeah. Okay.
So
but we're taking the same. Well, we're still judging that. Just to make this clear, because it's the basis of your argument, the data.
The data being true or not.
Yeah, you're saying that you don't trust the data, but now you're telling me an example of the data that's on the same source of data than the data that I've just said, and I don't see why that's different. Because it coincides more with what you're trying to say.
The point that I'm making is that when that data came out, we were looking at that data, or people looked at that data. And I think when we were looking at that data then, we were a lot more suspicious of the veracity of the data then. Whereas now, because now they've stopped talking about death rates and started talking a while ago about infection rates. The word rates is still there. But so it's transformed our perspective. So I think now we're more trusting of the data. I'm not saying that the data is wrong, either one of them. The data may be correct, but our perception is that, you know, they've done something. Governments around the world have done something. They've achieved something, and so now we kind of...
So we're kind of saying the same thing to a point.
I think we're
basically what we're looking at, that people understand the problem more now. I remember talking to my friend who's actually works for public health, and he's responsible for all the Manchester kind of area and all that. And I was talking to him, I was saying, well, a lot of people around me don't believe that, you know, that there is a virus or anything like that. And he was like, mate,
never say that.
He was like, mate, give it 2 weeks and everyone will believe it, because everyone will know somebody who's been contaminated. And I think we've gotten out to that stage where it's not so much the data that's being out, but people can't really see. But then again, the other thing I found out from this friend is the discrepancy between the medical advice and the research and what actually trickles down to the public. For example, they made a big plan about old people and old people's homes and how to deal with this, presented it to the government, and the government went, you know what? We're not going to do that. And they said, no, it's fine. And result, loads of people died in the care It wasn't because of medical advice or that medical officer that got manhandled in the park the other day. It was about what the officials do with that information, because they're not concerned about humanity, about viruses, about people's health and well-being. What they're concerned about primarily is their own money. And so that's discrepancy comes between the data
we got to wrap things up now. Sorry to break this up, but I can see you two are going to go off for another. Whitey.
No, but it's all right.
We're summing up the final thoughts, I think, from you as an MC, a bearer of news, information, real talk from around the world. An MC tells the picture on the streets that doesn't get filtered, doesn't get homogenized or politicized. It's people's experience, lived experience, from experts in their own experience. So I hope that people from the audience listening to this podcast will be trying to understand why hip hop heals, why MC culture and lyricism can be a force for good. So gonna give you the last word.
Why could it? How can it heal?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
good.
No, why is the MC important today?
Yeah, because of what you just said. It's an alternative source. Like it's just coming. It's unadulterated. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully, I mean, a lot of MCs are talking the truth and talking realness. There's a big trend at the moment not to do that, and like everything's about I don't know, like controversial stuff all the time. You know what I mean? But yeah, like I think real MCs are still talking the realness, and that's important. You know what I mean?
Here. Hopefully we can get some more real talk from the MCs bubbling up as a result of our conversation. So yeah, put pen to paper and have a go at writing your real experience. So just want to share a few bars from your work, actually, please, Whitey. If you could give us a little 8-bar or 16-bar where people could use your words to inspire their own, use your words to do a doodle, use your words to go and create something out of pottery or like out of clay or whatever. Just something that can inspire the audience to get the pen moving, paintbrush moving, their bodies moving, whatever it is.
Right. Me say me born in the land, me no say no hope or glory. This is white to the T with the realest England story. Cause all heap of wickedness we go on in our story. Now them a try to make we ignore it. Look how they murder innocent and claim that as a victory, and them eat off all the food and never left nothing for we. The lords and the earls and the duke, them, they never left nothing for the little working class youth. Them in a chest, them conservative, or them Labour Party, them in a chest, them Freemason, or them Illuminati, them in a chest, them mass media, or them paparazzi, them ordinary people. Why do you have to talk for them? We're born in the heart of them system, but we don't really want a part of them system. We always keep a clean hearted of them system, then treat we like a outcast in a them system. At you we born in a Babylon.
Oh yeah, that was so sick.
That's brilliant.
Oh, you couldn't have hit them now. Like basically, you just put a sledgehammer up to finish off with there. That would. It's like you wrote those lyrics for our conversation, isn't it?
I mean, this is the great thing on the lyrics, though. Is that this song? When did you write it? Like 2006.
It was released in 2009, so I'd say about 2008, probably. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
13 years ago,
And
never more current.
Do you know what I mean?
That's the beauty
relevant.
of a true MC, real MC, timeless quality lyrics that mean something to everybody every time. You know, big ups, man. It's been amazing having you on. Like, I could do another 15 podcast episodes with you, man. But yeah, thank you so
definitely.
much. Is it all right if we produce the name of the track and you send it us to play out with, please?
Yeah, so that's Born in a Babylon from my 2000. It's the title track of my 2009 LP.
Okay.
And I'll send you it so you can hear. Do you want the original version or the jungle version?
Oh, let's have a bit of jungle. Yeah, come on, Robin knows. Let's have some jungle on here, mate.
We'll send the jungle one, yeah.
All right, big ups, mate. Thank you, listeners, and sending love to every one of you. Thank you, Whitey. Thank you.
Can we have a separate one now? Can we just have a little separate so we can finish thrashing out the whole COVID argument? Because do you know what I mean? I hadn't even got started yet.
It's like news night over here, which Kizami Paxman. We'll get some papers to shuffle on the desk.
All night with that one.
All right, then.
Nice one, man.
One love, mate.
Cool.